we're being recorded. Got it here. Got it there. Got it there. Come on, fingers. There we go.
Okay, can you hear us online to confirm? I don't know if someone could just give us a thumbs up, because today's an important meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. We need to make sure it gets recorded.
They were missing my comments earlier. I was telling you about how before
Were they
MTV
missing them?
Yeah, probably not. Okay, this is weird. Look, we have a whole section right here with nobody. This is bizarre. It's like the whole plate has shifted sideways.
Well, it's
or
like,
something.
we're bored of this. We're ready to leave.
Yeah.
Let's quick exit.
Nobody get out quick. So before MTV, you didn't have to be pretty to be a rock star. That's, as you see on here. So again, welcome. This is going to be a big day. Lots of contract changes and maybe even some bonus material. Isn't that exciting?
Oh, bonus material.
Yes. Let's start with a message from Mr. Presidente.
Hello, Keller Williams, and welcome to a happy 2024. In fact, happy New Year to all of you. I'm really excited about 2024 for many reasons, not the least of which is Family Reunion coming up in Las Vegas, February 25th through the 29th, where we will see the amazing Tony Robbins, the amazing Mel Robbins, the amazing Gary Keller, and a whole lot of other amazing speakers. I can't wait to see you there. Secondly, this is the year of AI integration and command. Super excited about what that means for our business. And thirdly, there's a rumor out there that interest rates might fall just a little bit for mortgages. And so that's all good news for our business. Wishing you an amazing 2024. Have a great day.
Very cool. Also, you got to meet somebody new today. It's warm, it's cold, so you got to get up and move around. You need to say hi to two people you don't know. If you're online, you can send a direct message to two people you don't know. You got 1 minute? Go. All right, I hope you met somebody new. Now, each week we talk about our affiliates and our vendors, and each year the program starts over, so we've got a few more on here. Who do we have in the room who can say hi real quick and who they are and what they do?
Adam?
Adam McGrath with Comparion Insurance Agency, and we always appreciate each and every opportunity to help your home buyers with home insurance.
I know Jess is in the process of renewal, so go ahead, Jess. Yep.
Jess Bowman Insurance Group. We're just excited for the new year and appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to help you.
And then Christina.
Hi, Christina Ferrante with 417 Home Loans. I'm your lending lady for life. I wanted to thank you guys for welcoming me for a second year. I was really excited to renew.
Like the red bow too, nice touch.
Yeah.
Cindy.
Cindy with Great American Title. Christy isn't here yet. She's on her way. We're the GAT girls. We're your concierge at Great American. Wherever you need to find a closer, you need services, you need to know where we are in our 15 locations to serve you. We're excited for this year. Great things are happening and excited to be part of your business. Thank you so much.
All right.
This is like the perfect meeting to have like on a crappy day, because everyone will be in here, so we have contracts,
Yeah.
Gets everybody in the market center.
Yes.
It was lonely yesterday.
It was very little. So Haley had to run upstairs real quick, but she usually stops or has this moment to talk about Onward, what Onward does.
So Onward provides transaction coordination, marketing, closing gift baskets provided by Letitia. So if you ever need a last minute closing gift, she restocks those every week. Highly recommend. And then we also have sign running. So if you ever need a sign ran to a specific location or maybe picked up that you don't want to go after closing, feel free to reach out and we have somebody on hand that will help do that.
Or put them in the ground when the ground is frozen.
Well, come on.
Oh, that reminds me, a hint and a suggestion. I always lock my lockbox on the doorknob. if you set it on the ground, the water can wick into it and freeze it shut.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Learned that the hard way.
Okay. So if you will elevate your lockbox or just do the shackle and lock it on the doorknob if it works, that solves you having to be frozen and can't get into a house. All right. Mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspectives. Today is our values, which is,
God, family, and then business.
and so every time we have a culture winner, last week's winner was Jimena Martinez. And here's who she said for this week.
So the person she chose is simply full of sunshine. She always makes you feel important when you talk to her and genuinely pays attention to you. She cares about people and has a heart of gold. She's an amazing asset at KW. Congratulations, Natalie Schmidt. So.
Text her, except I think she's online. If you're online, say something, Adelaide, so we don't start texting you like crazy.
I do see her online. So she has her Zoom going.
Is she paying attention? If not,
Okay, let's say her phone.
She wants
Here
the
we go.
text. Okay.
Yeah, she wants the messages, yeah.
Text her,
Oh, my God.
Oh,
Too late.
if you want to text her anyway, 417-631-6424. One more time, operators are standing by. 417-631-6424. And while you're doing that, we have another culture thing we're excited about.
Yes. So this person doesn't know they're about to get a shout out. However, for those of you that don't know, Liliana Owen, she has been out of KW for a little bit. She had a brain tumor on her head and actually had to go undergo surgery. She is actually with us online today for the first time in like 8 months from her recovery, and she will be in our office today for Ignite. So we're super excited. Liliana, you're online and we miss you and we can't wait to see you today.
Yay.
Oh, there she is. Excited to have her back and just be able to see her. It's been a long time. And so she was on our ALC last year and just excited.
Incredible person. We're so glad you're doing well. We love you. We're happy to see you today. Also, broker moment. Jim, do you have anything right here? You want to wait till we get to the contracts in a little
Do you
bit?
have-
Wait, I think it's a pretty good crowd.
What's that?
I said, we can wait if you like.
Let's do, because then we'll give you plenty of time on that. That's coming up on tech thing. Calendar. So we're on the 16th. We are halfway through January. Can you believe that? The first month of the year is almost all gone. And what starts today?
Ignite.
It's
So
gonna be on
Ignite is
fire.
back. So if you haven't registered and you would like to attend, feel free to drop in. Shanna has changed the format. So we have one instructor teaching 4 or 5 classes in a row versus a new instructor every other day. That way you can get more acclimated to the instructor and their learning style. So we're really excited about that. So any of the calendar that has the fire, that's where you know Ignite will be on that. Also, this Friday, we have Wealth Building. Every Friday at 9, we're starting. We'll rewatch Wealth Building 2.0 and then have a discussion. And then a couple of other things to note, Luxury Home Tour is the 24th. So Susan Heron and Austin Bacart will actually be going through luxury homes. So if you have questions about that or what the different features are, reach out to them so you can be a part of it. And then.
And they're gonna tour luxury houses on that, aren't they?
Yes, yep.
So you'll get out and see some luxuries and know what you're looking for when you're there.
Yep. And then we also have Admin Mastermind on the 25th.
So if you notice, we have columns this year. So Mondays is all about lead generation. Tuesday's always gonna be about tech. Wednesday's a core class, masterminds, wealth. So that way you can kind of know what's coming up each week and which things you need to look at and focus on. Nicole, Haley, and who else has been working on our calendar?
Shanna.
And Shanna.
Yep.
What they're doing is gonna be absolutely incredible this year. So if you don't know something, there's no excuse. We're gonna be teaching it sometime. Also, team meetings are gonna be crazy all this year. As you can tell today, contract updates are very important. Next week is a family reunion panel. People who've gone to family reunion before to tell you what to expect and meet the ALC, which is the Associate Leadership Council, which basically runs the office. Then you'll see some other things on there. The OTO, Ozark Transportation Organization's coming up. That is the group that knows what road changes are coming in the future, like next year, 10 years, 20 years. It helps you know that. So like if you're selling a house in Stone Meadow and 4 years ago, you told somebody on Nettleton, oh, you're never gonna see a Kansas Avenue behind you. Yes, you are. So the more you know this stuff, the more it can help you. So check all these out. There's a lot of great meetings going on, and don't call people you're not supposed to.
You always slides it in this somewhere.
That's right. Don't get sued for stuff like that. Reminder, today, 4th quarter taxes from last year are due. If you've not sent them in and you're a quarterly tax person, get them postmarked today, because the government likes to charge you extra stuff, so.
And talking about taxes, if you have to 1099 anybody, talk with your CPA because 1099s are due to the IRS by the 31st of January. So your CPA may have an earlier time frame. So that goes to anybody that you paid in a service that is not a corporation for $600 or more in 2023. So make sure you reach out to your CPA so you can figure out who you need to 1099 and you get those submitted in. From a market center perspective, how it works, if you haven't had a 1099 from us before, Landon's in our process of finalizing all of ours. He'll send them to our CPA and those will be mailed to your house. So let's say you moved last year and you did not tell us that your address had changed. We need to know that like today, or else it's gonna get sent to your previous address. And if you don't have anything forward, it's gonna take a while and we don't really have control over where it's getting mailed. So if you've moved, make sure you let Landon know so you can get your 1099 on time, so you can get your taxes done.
Very cool. All right, another team meeting we want to remind everybody about. February 6th is Vision Breakfast, right in this room. Breakfast will be served at 9, and then it's a recap of 2023 and a future casting of what we're gonna be doing in 2024. Last year was so much fun for the first time doing it. This year we have a company that's gonna get the breakfast here on time. We've been working on the back end side of it. It's gonna be so much fun, so it's gonna be awesome. Also, while we're talking about taxes and money, your board dues are due. So you gotta get those paid. Here's the breakdown. You're not as happy about it as I'm not happy either.
He just laughed about the photo that you had.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
I used to be able to do a Marge voice. Now I just sound like Yoda.
This is recorded.
Yes. Okay, so here's your dues for the year, $538 by the end of January. After that, you can still renew by the end of February. And last year, 30% of agents didn't do this till February. So 30% paid the $50 late fee.
Another side note on the 1099, if you receive profit share in 2023, you will receive a separate 1099 from Keller Williams Realty International. So just a side note to expect 2 1099s coming your way.
Very cool. And you want to tell about our
Yeah, I'm so
MREO boot
excited
camp?
about this. Monica Reynolds is coming to Springfield, Missouri. So for those of you that do not know Monica Reynolds, she is the operations queen of Keller Williams. She is the one that created the perfect real estate assistant class, and now she's created the Millionaire Real Estate Operations Boot Camp. Monica Kelts will actually be co-teaching this with her here in Springfield. We'll be at Relics. About this class, it's a 2-day class full of operations information. So what systems, what call sheets, what documents do you need to have in your business? This isn't just for operations though. So if you are looking at what system should I build, this would be a great class to attend. You will literally get a binder this thick and every page will be covered in that 1.5 day period. She'll go through every single page. She'll give you references for it. If you need somebody to talk to of how valuable the class was, talk to Jen Wolf. This is the first time Monica is actually venturing outside of Austin, Texas. She wants to take this on the road, so we're going to test pilot it here. And also the goal is to bring other market centers operations. So this would be a great referral networking opportunity to meet other operations extraordinaires in the industry here in KW. So get signed up. We're super excited about this. If you have any questions, please come see me.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. And do we know the cost on it?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay,
I
so
think Nicole can put in like, oh, Monica Kelts is actually online. Monica Kelts, is there anything else we should mention about this? Since you and Monica we get both Monicas.
Yeah, we're super excited. I think cost for one person is around $995. The more people on the team that you sign up, you get a bigger discount. So when you do the register now, it'll give you that breakdown. I encourage the agent to come with their admin if they can swing it. Like Rachel said, the book is huge. I helped build this book. Not only do you get the 21 playbooks within that book, but you get, I think there's like 18 to 19 additional playbooks that are virtual. So all of it's plug and play. You can take it away. It's everything from onboarding to lead generation. The list goes on and on. So I use it in my business. I was able to take and duplicate from other people as well.
And if the financial maybe is something that maybe we need to talk about, come see us and we'll have a conversation regarding that. So maybe we can set up a payment plan so it'll be a little bit easier.
very cool. So what comes up at the end of February?
Oh, family, I was like, I don't know, what do you have next? Family reunion, and side note, if you are still needing a hotel room, Sam Davis actually has a couple still in their reservation that they don't need anymore, so go talk to Sam, she's actually in the back, so there's an extra opportunity for a hotel room too.
So KW is the top 4 reasons to go to family reunion. Number 1, it's the industry's biggest training network and cultural event. I think we expected like 12 to 18,000, somewhere in that range. It's going to be huge and fun. Number 2, keynote speakers. We got Mel Robbins, we got Tony Robbins, we got Gary Keller. They constantly add more stuff in. So up to the last minute, you're gonna get more and more people in there.
And this will be Mel's only speaking engagement for 2024. Super
Yep.
excited to have her.
Latest command updates in person. They have tech people there to help you. The vendor area there is incredible. You can go see anything and everything that they've got there. And number 4, it's Vegas. So you do have to go to some meetings, okay? It technically runs 25th through 29th. I know several people have said, I can't be away from kids or that long. We've actually found, and I know, by the way, price still is $8.99 until next Tuesday. Then it goes up another $100.
Yep.
And then on site, it goes to $1,200. So if you're thinking about it, come to the meeting next week where you're gonna hear from people that have gone to family reunion. That's the last day you can get it for the cheaper rate.
And there are a couple of groups, KW Family Reunion 2024, that some agents will say, hey, I can't go anymore. I'm selling my ticket. If you do choose to buy a ticket, make sure you look up on White Pages that they are a verified associate, because unfortunately scammers happen and I don't want you to be out that
Yeah.
money. But there are a couple of options to find a discount ticket.
I said that wrong. Nicole corrected me. It increases to $9.99 next Tuesday. So don't wait for Tuesday. Do it before that if you want the $100 savings there. Also, flights are hard to get here from Vegas unless you would go for a whole week. These are some we found. We got several agents that are going Sunday evening, flying from Springfield. They'll get to Vegas at 8:30 and they're coming back halfway through the day Wednesday. The only thing they're gonna miss by doing this is it's my favorite things, it's Inspirational Morning. But they're gonna be able to see Mel Robbins and go straight to the airport after that. So if 4 days, 5 days is too long, this is a good possibility. I think it was like $500. But flights change all the time. But there's ways to get there for whatever time frame you can. It's worth trying to figure something out on that. And if you're a MAPS client, you get a party at House of Blues with the DJ War and Peace.
And the theme is Roaring 20s. I believe.
Really?
Yep, so.
Oh, because we're in the 20s. Wow, that makes me feel old. Okay, Tech Time with Nicole.
Hello, good morning. So first things first, yes, please make sure you're paying your GSVOR renewal. But then also the fun thing is that 2024 is a license renewal year as well. So we do have a CE cheap code, so you can get all of it done for under $50. It's a $10, basically a coupon code. So you only have to pay $48 for all 12 hours of your CE. Please note that your core class is going to be fair housing. Is that correct, Rachel?
Yeah, so this year, normally the core has been Code of Ethics. It's actually fair housing this year. However, we are in a Code of Ethics renewal year and that renews every 3 years. So might as well go ahead and add on your Code of Ethics as well. So you get both of those. And because if you renew and you don't renew your Code of Ethics, we'll call you in November and say, hey, there was one other class you didn't take that you need to make sure you take. So, and Landon did get that discount code today. So Nicole will get all of that communicated out.
But basically, what do we say? All your CE for $48?
Yep.
So, and do
Online,
it now. Don't wait until your broker license renews in middle of summer or your license later on, because you'll be busy then.
And the board does have some in-person CE options if you prefer in-person as well. So if you have questions around that, come see us and we'll get you connected with the board.
Yep. All right, numbers from last week. Listings were they went up some, but contracts went up crazy. So that was the big thing. So many contracts hit. And then compared to last year, we're starting to track like we're in a normal season again. And then this went down because so many listings went under contract. So the number of available listings on yesterday was 1,379. Like I said, I think we're gonna hit 1,700 this summer. That's my estimation based on, my geeky Excel stuff. So we think that's where it's gonna end up. Realtor Weekly, you get this every week, so we don't spend a lot of time on it, but there is a Code of Ethics certification coming up. Women's Council Realtors is having their Tradesman Expo, which is a cool event. Awards applications, that is like Rookie of the Year, Broker of the Year, all these different specialty things, they're due by February 2nd. If you want to nominate somebody, you need to get that done in the next 2 weeks. And the Winter Business Conference starts today, so I'm heading up to St. Louis for that right after team meeting today. I know several people are there already too, and I think that's it. So we got to the important stuff pretty quick today. Jim, come on up. Do we want to unshare the screen so they can see him?
Yeah, let's do that.
Please welcome our wonderful broker, Jim Boland. Screen there.
You all brought a copy of the revised contract, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. With the revisions highlighted.
It takes 4 computers to run all this. It's really bizarre. There's a computer here, there's a computer there.
Hey, Jim.
Oh, it's on the tracker. Yay, it will watch your every move.
Where can we get a copy? Nicole, can you pull a copy of the revision and put it in the chat for everybody as well, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And it should have been sent out through the board as well with the red line version, and you can find it on MAR.
Everybody has one. It's not with you, but you've seen it.
They were waiting for you.
Yeah.
We're not even looking.
Well, we'll just start with the residential sales contract because the changes, there's not a lot of changes. And since can you see that? So on page 1, they did a little bit of wordsmithing that means nothing on line. If you just want to put notes there on line 27, just wordsmithing. That's all it was. They just changed a phrase and it affects nothing. I would suggest you do on earnest money, how many days should you put in the blank? Say 10. Just go ahead and say 10. Say 10.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Say 10 because, you know, old people carry checkbooks, but not a lot of people do. So if you don't have your checkbook with you, you're trying to write a check for earnest money, and then we go into last Wednesday and the weather goes bad and you got 5 days in there, you're already past it. And the seller can terminate the contract without penalty. All they gotta do is just send a note saying, oh, sorry, you didn't follow the terms and conditions of the contract, it's over with. So we don't wanna do that, right? If you do have earnest money. Page 2, now, the appraisal contingency, they didn't do anything except capitalize the appraisal contingency throughout that paragraph on page 2. And so that's not a big issue. I would suggest that in most cases, what should you do on the appraisal contingency as far as term?
Extending through closing?
Yeah, I would say the term of the contract. I mean, I typically put in there on the appraisal contingency, if I'm writing the contract, I put the full term of the contract. And the reason being is any lender back there in the back can tell you, if they weren't talking, they would say, we probably don't get the appraisal back until 5 days before closing, right? So if you put 25 days in there on a 45-day closing, and then they call you the week before and say, you know, we got a problem, he bought a truck, or she bought a truck, or we found a medical issue, or there's something in the background that's gonna change this, they don't have an out. The contract says that they have to bring the funds to closing, right? Yes, they do. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's FHA, VA, whatever, it still says that in the contract. Now, could you file litigation for default? Yes, you could. Do they have any money? FHA, VA, maybe not. So, but the point is, it's in the contract. You want to protect your clients as a buyer's agent, that's what you do. Now, the big one is, and since you can't see it, on line 107. 98 starts talking about the title and the survey and the contract. Well, on 107, in that paragraph, they decided the title commitment and owner's policy shall be issued, and is typically by the title company that you selected. And it goes on down to say then that survey or service buyer selects and the company to perform the same. Buyer has blank 10 days, if none stated, to review the title commitment after its receipt, including, other than permitted exceptions as defined below, all recorded subdivision use. and other restrictions, right of ways, easements, and all other recorded documents referenced therein. What does that mean? Well, it used to be in the data period, didn't it? Subdivision was in there. Well, subdivision is still in there. We'll go to it in a minute, but it says in there, unrecorded subdivision, HOA, et cetera, information, responsibility of the buyer. Here it says that this buyer now has an opportunity to review all recorded subdivision use during the title period. 10 days, title commitment, 10 days to review. So 20 days into the contract or day 19, your buyer calls you and says, I've been looking over this stuff and I want the seller to change the fact that the trash cans can't be out more than 6 hours. So you send that note to the listing agent gives it to the seller, and the seller says what? No, I can't change that. How am I gonna change that? I want all the houses to be all brick. I really don't like that very much. I want that changed. Seller goes and says, I can't change that. Garage doors can only be open to take your car out and put them back in. Can't have a basketball goal in the front yard. And so the seller says, buyer says to the seller, I want that changed or I'm terminating the contract without penalty.
Not good.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the point is that's a bad deal, isn't it? And it wasn't realtors who came up with this. Well, it was actually a realtor out of Southeast Missouri who proposed this. There's a lot of subdivisions down in Steele and Cooter and Hayti. But her deal was, you know, we can't always get the subdivision restrictions. Well, we can, obviously, in most of the cities. We call the title company. Great American says, I'll have them to you in 30 minutes, you know. So it's good for us. So we just pull the restrictions and covenants. I think for protection, you probably ought to try to get the CC&Rs and the subdivision restrictions posted with your listing, right? Just make them a document. That'd be one way to approach it and require the agent to sign off. So that, you know, send them to the seller initials them and you get them back as a part of the contract, part of the offer. That's one way to approach it. Another way would be to write into the special agreements that all parties agree that the buyer will review the subdivision, all recorded subdivision use information within 5 days. I mean, you could put that in there, but again, that's lawyer stuff, right? Are you protected? Who knows? No. I don't think so, maybe not. Point is, this is something to be concerned about, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's recorded subdivision use. So that's available. Now it's saying that the seller or the buyer has a right to review that, but it's 20 days. I mean, that's longer than the inspection period, right? Unless you have an extension for a specialist. And then all of a sudden you get the note from the buyer's agent says they want out and it's perfectly legal. Or they don't want out, they just want you to change the entire restrictions and covenants of the subdivision that are recorded so that the buyer will accept them. We've already talked to the attorneys up on the state level and they're attorneys and they just, you know, they think that's perfectly normal. That should be right there in the contract. Makes no sense. But anyhow, you've got to be aware of this because it's going to come back, I'd say 5 times a year. Somebody will find it in the contract. And as a buyer's agent, obviously you're supposed to review the contract with your client. And you're probably going to point this out. And if you do, it's just another out. It's not fair and balanced in the contract, in my opinion. To put it 20 days in, it puts it, you know, gives the buyer another out in the contract versus the seller being able to proceed with the contract. My opinion only. Any questions on that? Again, that's recorded subdivision use. Yes, sir.
It talks about rights of way and easements. What if they disagree with the size of the easement? Can they disagree with the size of easement to terminate?
Disagree with anything.
I don't think so. Because that is not changing. You know what I mean? I mean, that's something that's been recorded. A lot of times what we'll find, the problem with easements is the easement's been in use, but it's not recorded. Now, let's change that and say, okay, it hasn't been recorded, but we want to record it. We've got a survey for it. And he goes, now I want an extra 10 feet. Then you'd have a problem. Then the buyer could say, no, I don't want a 20-foot easement. I want a 30-foot easement. You can do it that way, but if the easement's already recorded, I think you're fine there. Just like the survey, which is a part of the title work, if you don't have one, but if you do have one and the buyer looks at it and goes, there's a discrepancy here, I want the seller to correct it. You send over a notice to the seller and the seller says, I'm not correcting it, contract's terminated without penalty. And then if the buyer is paid for the survey, now the seller is responsible to pay for that survey. A lot of people don't know that, but you should remember that because surveys are expensive. If you're going to get a survey too, should you put it in there as 25 days or 20 days? Say no, because it'll take you how long? Forever. 45 would be a minimum. Turn to the contract for sure if you're getting a new survey. But his question is, there's an existing easement and it is recorded. No, they can't gripe about that, or they can't terminate the contract because of that.
What's an example of an unrecorded subdivision use?
There could be anything. For example, who's in a subdivision with HOA? Okay. Let's say they have financial issues. Vintage Hills, remember Vintage Hills? They had, they owed $1 million or something on their recreation area. And people were going in there and the developer, who we know, said, I ain't paying it. You know, we're just gonna put an assessment on everybody. And it was unrecorded. And so that would be an example of that. Those dudes are just out there, right? A lot of times the HOA part isn't recorded, right? The HOA is separate from the CC&Rs. The CC&Rs say, you can do this, 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 and this within the subdivision. House is this big, driveways here, mailbox here, and so on. The HOA, though, is the controlling aspect of the social part of it. There could be some other restrictions too, but that's primarily it. But it could be unrecorded. It could not even, you know, it could just be sitting in the Susie Jones's desk, you know, who's the head of the HOA this year, or has been since it was built. That's just one example, the financial side, but it could be something else too. But if you go on to the next page, which again, you don't have the contract in front of you, it changed one paragraph, rewrote it, cleaned it up and said seller is solely responsible and liable for cleaning any title survey exceptions that arise, any existing monetary liens, and again, going back to that subdivision use that is recorded. That's the scariest part of the whole changes in the contract. The rest of it, fairly reasonable, I think. Okay, so that's a big one. So what should you do? You should go back and read it, and it's innocuous when you look at it because it's just one change, and you should go to the red light version, and all it says on page line 113, it says all recorded subdivision use belongs now in the title period. It's never been there. Those are the two words that were added. So you need to look at that and kind of figure out what does that mean? How does that apply? What Jeff Parker and I are going to do, what we thought to do, we're going to propose a rider that says the buyer has reviewed all recorded subdivision use and accepts it. Or the buyer has 5 days to review all recorded subdivision use and accept it. And then include that as part of every contract and every documents that you post to be included. Now, it won't happen tomorrow, right? The broker's meeting not until the 7th. We propose it. It goes in front of the board over another 30 days, and then the attorney will write it. And so it may be 90 days out or 120. But that's what we're going to do. And it'll just be a simple document to get that out of there because there's no way for it. And then maybe next year when we go to the state not this meeting, but the next meeting in January, they'll change it. Yeah, I feel like I'm teaching Chaucer again. You know, I taught English for 10 years and I always taught Chaucer right after lunch. That's what it looked like. All right, on inspections, it does note in the red line version, the cost and availability of insurance should be ascertained during the inspection period, including but not limited to homeowners and flood insurance. This is something that's important that's skipped over by a lot of agents. And I think you really ought to look at that again. That's why you ought to have the red line version, or the, mine's blue, but the red line version that says that. So that you can, you know, tell your client, hey, look, you know, check with your insurance company that you have immediately, if you have one, if you're a homeowner. Or if you're a new buyer, check with the insurance company, maybe one of our vendors, and say, will you insure this? And they'll tell you, and it's important because especially with first-time home buyers, you think you're gonna pay $1,000, right? And now it's $2,000. And now your debt to income is too high and you can't afford the house. It used to happen quite a bit down in Southeast one with the old houses with the knob and whatever they call that. It used to happen quite a bit with them because they'd say, we're not gonna insure that. Or they'd say, you know what, we looked at the roof and it's got 3 layers. We're not insuring it. So, but you need to make that a part of your job as a buyer's agent, right? And that's on line 149 and 50. And then in property data period, they added this whole section. I'm gonna read it. This is the one we talked about or just mentioned briefly. The buyer's responsibility during the property data period, if you allow it, to find subdivision documents. For this purpose, subdivision documents means the unrecorded subdivision, homeowner association bylaws, rules and regulations, and financial and insurance information for the subdivision of which a property is a part. Seller authorizes buyer to obtain subdivision documents from the association and agrees to cooperate in obtaining the same. Buyer is ultimately responsible for obtaining any subdivision documents or other property data. Now, this is in the data paragraph, the property data period paragraph, which is also referred to as the buyer's remorse paragraph, where they put in there 5 days and what can they use as a reason to terminate the contract? Anything. It gives you some examples. Unrecorded documents would be one, but it could be anything. Paint color, mother-in-law doesn't like the house, whatever it might be. They don't have to give a specific reason. They can just say, I've reviewed the data regarding this property and we're terminating the contract. That's why you see a lot of listing agents respond to anything in the data period with 0, right? Because the buyer and the buyer's agent are supposed to do their due diligence when? Prior to writing the contract, not after writing the contract. But if you do put 5 days in there, that includes these unrecorded subdivision documents. Now, where do you find those?
File 13.
I don't know exactly. Does anybody have an idea out there in the crowd, in the group?
We call it HOA. Call the HOA.
HOA.
Call the HOA president.
Yeah. And what's the problem with HOA presidents, title companies?
They don't get back to you. There's one.
But you can't identify them, right? I mean, if it changes every year, I mean, and the subdivision turns over a lot, you might not know who that person is. But again, that would be in the data review period, so it would be whatever period you've allowed for the buyer to find the unrecorded subdivisions. It says that you will help, but the buyer is ultimately responsible. Unrecorded versus recorded subdivision documents from the title period, which allows the buyer to terminate the contract within 20 days. So. Good there?
Golden.
They're encouraging on the inspection reports, I'm not sure that I am, but the buyer may use Form MS 2045 Buyer's Inspection Authorization to coordinate the inspection process. I'll be honest with you, I've never used it. Has anybody used that document?
No,
Okay, I've never used it. I just I mean, we set the inspection time, I call the seller's agent and I say, we got the inspection scheduled for 10 o'clock on Tuesday. And then I follow up with an email and that's it. I mean, that's the whole thing for me, but they're encouraging that. I'm not sure why. There must have been a problem somewhere across the state with that didn't hit us. How many inspection notices can you have? One. Yeah, they pointed out again, so just wanted to make sure you knew that. In the contract also, I said this again, but I'm gonna read this, and this is not a red line deal. On line 201, regardless of the resolution period timeframe set forth above, if seller responds by declining to satisfy all items listed in an inspection notice from buyer and does not make a counter proposal, then this contract shall automatically terminate unless buyer delivers a capitulation notice within 48 hours, basically. I want you to remember that because sometimes people don't think that. They think the resolution period continues. Even though the seller didn't respond, they still got time to think about it, right? But if the seller responds and says, I'm not fixing anything, 48 hours, somebody's got to make a decision. It does go on to say that unless you reach a mutually agreed to in writing agreement, but if the seller's saying no, then that means no. On 220, you'll see in the red line version that the entire broker role has been taken out and moved. It's just been moved to page 8. So don't worry about it. You still have, basically that paragraph says that you don't have any liability or responsibility. So you're not liable for the inspector or the engineers or the roofer or anybody else unless what?
Unless you
You only
prescribe.
suggest one option.
That would be, yeah, I didn't even think of that one. That's a pretty good answer. Unless you. Good job. That will come back to bite you probably. Unless you hire them, unless you're the person actually paying them. Now, the difference between calling the inspector and saying, hey, I need an inspection on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and then you give them your client's contact information, you've engaged them. And engaging and hiring are two different things. So you have no liability for what the inspector does. You call Nathan and say, Nathan, I need you before you look at a roof, early as you can this week. And Nathan goes and looks at the roof. You haven't hired Nathan. So if he falls through the roof, you don't have any liability or responsibility. It goes back to them. But if you hire them, then you have liability and responsibility. And all they did with that paragraph is move it to page 8. And if you read it, it says, as long as you stay within the confines of what your skill set is, which is filling out this contract, informing the buyer or the seller of material issues within the or the property, then you're fine. Okay? All right. And then it goes all the way back to page 8. That's where they moved that whole paragraph. Or actually, paragraph, page 26, and they just call it broker's role, franchise disclosure, and basically it just says those two things. Okay? You have no liability. Under Missouri law, brokers are immune from liability for statements made by a list of people, unless you hire them. That's it. 6 more to go. Just kidding. Buyer's exclusive agency contract. If you'll look, see the blue in there? All they've done is said, look, there were a bunch of lawsuits this year. You probably aren't aware of them, but there were a bunch. And so we want to make sure that the buyer knows that the commission could be shared and it's negotiable.
Just like it always has been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing new there, but I just want to make sure you understand that. And then on the seller's agency listing contract, there's a paragraph in blue referencing the fact that the compensation could be shared and is negotiable. That was it. I mean, but the government, of course, I mean, the attorneys want to make sure that we protected that client and that we've shared that information with the client. It's fairly straightforward. I don't know how you're approaching your listing contracts or your buyer's agency contracts. I haven't changed anything. My presentation is exactly the same. You know, if you want to list your house, here's the price that I think it should be. What do you think? Oh, it should be this. Okay, I'll list it at that. I don't care. The compensation that we charge is 6%. And typically what happens is we share that 95+% of the time with a buyer's agent. That compensation, we're just gonna split it evenly. So 6%, it'll be 3% to the buyer's agent. We don't care if they're a sub-agent or they're a buyer's agent or it's a transaction broker. I don't care. Sell the house, right? How do you feel about that? Well, you know, could we reduce it? Yes, we could. However, I just want to remind you that buyer's agents are human. And human nature is to, especially if you're a buyer's agent, make some money, is to get compensated at the highest rate possible, correct? Right. So if they see 4 houses that are exactly alike and there's 4 3s being compensated and 1 2, they're probably going to show the 3s first. That's just human nature. Don't you agree, Mr. Seller? Yeah, you're probably right. In fact, if you want, we could raise the compensation to 7%, and then we could offer the buyer's agent 4, and we'll get more showings. How do you feel about that? No, I really like the 6 better. But I haven't changed it at all. I'm not going to change mine because I think that's a fair compensation. It's been traditional in our market and pretty much across the United States, except in higher priced areas. I think it's fair compensation. If I work hard, I deserve that 3. And I might negotiate if I bring the buyer, but I don't have to if it's offered. But the key is they want to make sure that they know. Now, it's not going to be highlighted in your agreements when you're presenting them. But they're suggesting, I think, because of the highlight, that you just don't skip over it.
I see a question Red had back on inspections. Regarding inspection notices, can you rescind an inspection notice or response prior to acceptance to amend, withdraw the notice?
Yes. However, Red and the group, if you are within the resolution period, the seller at any time can do what? He can sign the original notice and accept everything and fix everything at any time. So even you sent over a notice, and the seller sends back, I guess is what he's saying, I hope, sends back a response, and then you send one and then want to withdraw that, you could do that, but the seller could still respond by signing the original notice. Okay. With everything on it and saying, I'm fixing everything. I don't care what you say. And you do that up to midnight on the 10th day. Yes, sir.
So similar question, we had a situation where a buyer submits an inspection notice, we have the list side, and then they turn and rescind it, add something and submit another one. We were kind of like, well.
I'd ignore that.
Essentially.
I mean, if you've already got the notice in hand,
yeah, and
then they send a second one. I mean, if it's acceptable, I'd sign the first one, or I'd counter the first one. I would, if you've got 2 documents, whatever gets there first is going to be the one. A lot of times what the attorneys say is all about intent. And the intent was, this is what I wanted. I may have changed my mind now, but here's the original intent. And so I'm signing this one, or I'm countering this one. And then they can come back with that second one if they wanted to, but you can't send 2. It's just like the inspection notice. How many you get? 1. You can't send inspection responses 2 or 3 and say, pick one. You usually put that in the inspection notice, pick one, you know. I got 3 choices here. Yes, sir.
You had mentioned insurance inside the inspection period. What if there's no inspection period?
You're waiving that right then. If you're waiving the inspection like an as is, then you're waiving that right to terminate the contract because of insurance. Absolutely, period.
Even with financing in place?
Finance has been waived too on the as is. If you're going as is with no termination, you've waived all that. Yeah, on an as is.
I don't think that's right.
I was unaware of that.
You're saying as is,
Yeah, so if, for instance, we submit an offer, it's a conventional loan, but we include an, as-is rider,
oh, okay, and you're saying,
and the house is
but you still
uninsurable.
got a financing contingency.
Correct, yep, and the house
Oh,
is
yeah, okay, yeah, you
uninsurable.
still got your financing contingency in place. You're waiving appraisal, right? I think so. I think well,
Because that would just be.
I don't have it in front of me.
Financing.
yeah. I think the financing contingencies there, I don't know that the appraisal contingency is.
So in terms of an uninsurable property, you would just say that if it's uninsurable, obviously the bank's not gonna lend. Therefore, we can utilize the financing contingency as an exit.
Would be the lender, yeah. Well, the financing would be gone regardless of the appraisal if they're not gonna lend on it. Wouldn't matter whether they're appraised or not. They're not gonna appraise it if it's not, if they won't loan on the property.
Right, yeah, I'm asking, you had said that we should ascertain, availability of insurance in that inspection. If there's no inspection contingency, then where does that land? Is it just we're lucky? Or,
Well, I think you could leave it, I mean, I think the lender is going to require that if you're getting a loan. The lender's gonna require that, but I don't know specifically unless there's a specific opportunity to look at a contract and say, yeah, you're okay on that. I really don't. I don't know the answer to that. I'll look at as is again. If you're still saying there's an as is on it?
yeah, so as is option 3, it waives the right to physically inspect the property or request or terminate. But it doesn't necessarily handle anything regarding financing, insurance, or appraisal.
Option 3, not option 2.
Correct.
Which is the one that just says you don't have any right, right?
3 is like you've got nothing in
You
terms
don't
of.
have no right to inspection, you have no right to terminate. I think
Based
you've
on-
eliminated everything in my opinion. Appraisal and loan. If you say I have no right to terminate the contract, then you have no right to terminate the contract.
I don't think it's just no right to terminate. I think it's no right to terminate based on any inspection findings.
But if you don't have an inspection, and that's just what you just said?
Correct.
You have no inspection and you have no right to terminate, then you have no right to terminate.
But then what happens if they find out the house is uninsurable?
I think if you've chosen that option, that you have no right to terminate the contract. And it might be one you send to the legal line. Ask the attorneys what they say. They respond pretty quickly. I get 1 or 2 of those a day from agents who ask questions up there. Maybe they say, oh, no, those things are still in place. But I know if you choose that option, paragraph 7 has disappeared.
But every other paragraph still should be there, financing, appraisal, all that.
Well, but didn't they move that? Isn't that what we just said? They moved that to the inspection paragraph? If they moved it to the inspection paragraph, you're gone.
Yeah.
So if that language is now in the inspection paragraph, you've waived paragraph 7. It doesn't exist anymore. So 7 for 2 pages, I don't care what the insurance company says. I think you don't have the right to terminate. And that'd be a question again, but if it's moved to the inspection paragraph, again, paragraph 7 is gone if that's the option that you choose.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Good question. But I'd still send it to legal line just for the fun of it, just see what they say. Anything else? I'm sorry we didn't have copies for everybody, but we'll do better next time. We'll get
Wait,
copies.
where do we get that red line
So
version?
that is, you got an email from the GSBR that has the red line version, all of it. It's also pinned to the top of our internal page, the quick link. Click on it and you'll log in. It'll take you directly to it. Nicole has all of that loaded for you. And we'll send it out and it's been in the KW Springfield email as well.
I would go also and print the overview by the legal line, which is it's a revision page, and it talks about each revision and why they did it. The reasoning. Not always good, but I mean, but then you've got that as an overlay for everything that you pull up. And then, I know you don't like paper, but if it was me, I'd print them, so that I have them sitting there. Here's the red line version, here's the version I'm using online, so I can go back to it every once in a while. Because like he brings up a question that I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that if paragraph 7's gone, then and the insurance part is in paragraph 7, then you don't have a right. It's just terminated.
Haley, was Jimena printing copies upstairs? Okay, so Jimena is printing extra paper copies upstairs. If you want to grab one on your way out, you're more than welcome to. Wim had put something in the chat.
Yeah,
I can't read it. I
it's
think
a
he
real
put some-
long one.
It's line 38 of the as-is writer. It shows that waiver of any inspection rights pursuant of this writer shall not waive any other rights of the buyer under the contract. So it wouldn't apply if you couldn't get insurance. That's still your out.
Line 38, I don't even have a line 38.
It's like a title
On the
insurance
as-is.
becomes an insurance.
This sounds like a legal line question.
Sounds like a legal line question, or an as-is writer question. But again, if paragraph 7 goes away and insurance is in paragraph 7, you're waiving that right. That's my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but if it doesn't exist anymore,
That might affect the financing. If you can't get the financing and you left that as an out, and insurance prevents you from getting financing, you've now got an out because the financing contingency.
Right.
it's just like with the insurance and then the loan contingency deadline. So you build a loan contingency deadline in 20 days, and it's an FHA loan. But you don't find out until day 25 or 30 from the lender. You look down at the bottom of that paragraph, I think it's like 220 or something like that. It says you are still responsible for all funds to closing. I don't care if you're FHA, VA, whatever. Now, try to enforce that. I mean, you're not gonna be able to. You can sue all you want. There's probably not money there. But it doesn't say, you miss that deadline, you're still responsible.
Well, if you put those days all the way through closing, you get close to the deadline, you extend it, you ask for an amendment to.
You better extend the deadline on the loan contingency too.
Yeah.
Just like on the appraisal. Anytime you extend anything, if you've got other deadlines built into the contract, you need to extend those too. Just like the title and survey. So you write a 45-day contract, you find out you can't get a survey for 60 days or within a 60-day period, you need to extend that then. All contingency deadlines currently in the contract to be extended to closing. And that's not, you're not practicing law. You're just saying, look, everybody needs to be aware of this and everybody signs it, then they can't come back to you and go, okay, well, you missed the title. Survey came back and, 100 acres and it was only 80. You can't call that. You have to extend it. But you have to extend, again, it was made, all deadlines within the contract.
So I ask you all to be kind, because there's 300 other brokerages in GSBOR. Most of them are not going through this stuff. So the fact that we know it ahead of time, number one, that shows you an advantage of being here. But don't go and go, well, you're an idiot because you don't know this or that. Be kind with other people. Use this as an introduction to them of why they maybe should join our KW family.
Well, the other thing too, you're still, all of you in here at one time or another, an agent from another company doesn't understand the inspection period at all. I mean, they respond to you like, what are you talking about? The contract's terminated. Well, we're done, but you have to understand that, and you can't just beat them up about it. Just say, okay, here, I'm gonna copy this section right here to you and send it to you. Because a lot of them, and I, not to use EXP, but there's some smaller brokerages too that they don't get any education whatsoever. Or maybe they get an email. And how many of those do you get? But if you don't see that subdivision rule in there, you're gonna get burned on it at some point. I know you will. And I don't understand it any more than you do, the unrecorded subdivision stuff. Where'd that come from?
That subdivision, what if it's acreage and unrecorded or unplatted land? Are we just calling it subdivision? Or is it only for subdivided land? Unplatted land, I'm confused.
Well, if it's
Because you have agreements and well agreements and all those recorded documents, sometimes unrecorded documents on unplatted land, on acreage and vacant land. Did the same rules apply?
A lot of times that goes to the lender though. If you have unrecorded documents, the lender says, I've got to have a well agreement. It's got to be in writing, it's got to be recorded. I've got to have this easement. You got a driveway with 4 houses on it, and everybody's been using it for 40 years, but if it's not recorded, the lender goes, I've got to have a recorded
You
document.
don't have to have buyer review of those documents in order to move forward.
Yeah, that's what the contract says now. It says unrecorded documents, you gotta have them reviewed.
Oh, I thought it was just for subdivision. That's where I was confused. Okay.
Well, it's technically just a rural subdivision without, it's not a
So you're
recorded.
calling it the same thing?
Yeah, it could be the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But if it's unplatted,
That's why I
then
was just
yeah,
confused.
it's not a subdivision, it's just land. But a lot of this comes back, it's just like the concessions. You know, there's a line, what, 40 different concessions within the contract, everybody with me, that they list out there? But what does it say in the final paragraph of that section? As required by lender. So the lender makes that final determination on all those concessions. And I've had this argument with agents all the time. Well, they didn't take all the money. We should get that. It's like, well, no, the lender is gonna take everything they can, right? I mean, that's part of the responsibility. You got $5,000 and then they want 5,000. But if it's 4,000 is all they can take legally per the whatever loan they're getting, and that 1,000 goes back to the seller, right? But yes, it doesn't go to the buyer just because they got 5,000 in there. It's money that's not been used, so it's credited back to the seller. So who determines all the concessions? Lender, yeah, just remember that. Don't prorate anything if you're a new agent, don't even think about it.
So a couple of things, the contract updates every single year. So I would add a calendar reminder reoccurring, maybe January 2nd every year to go back and look what changes have been made to these documents and where to find them. Add a quick link, so next year you'll thank yourself for the work that you've already done. Second, we are very fortunate to have a broker that will come and talk to us about this multiple times. So can we give Jim Bolin a round of applause? And you brought some information to us and you told us how we could go find some more of that information. So him and Don do an extraordinary job of keeping us educated and trained. So thank you to both of them.
We had some bonus material in case we had time, but you're just gonna have to wait on that till on down. It's got some Disney involved with it, so we're gonna save that. We did get copies of the contracts there. Those are the red/blue line version.
Yep.
Next week, family reunion panel and meet the ALC. Love to see this size crowd each week. And I think we had 60 monitors online. Some of those had 10 to 12 people each one. So thank you all for joining us online and here. Stay warm. Have a safe day.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.